stretch the WAN, so that way effectively we're looking at no longer a server failing, but we're able to fail over a guest session to another guest session on another host. Okay. And that has been a huge benefit in organizations lately.
All right. So tell me a little bit about that disaster recovery scenario. Obviously VMware has vMotion and this idea that you need this, these instant failovers. Tell me a little bit about what kind of offering is available out of the box with Hyper-V and which scenarios it works in.
Well, VMM 2008 is another product, a System Center product, that allows you to manage your not only your Hyper-V servers, but your ESX servers, and from a single console. And it's able to quick migrate the servers over to another machine. If it's highly available, it's instantaneous, works great, and it's great for those types of workloads.
And I think one of the things that we've taken also an approach, and we discuss, is while there's one approach of making your hosts fail over, and there's failover clustering in Windows 2008 that I don't think gets a lot of press, but effectively Microsoft provides failover clustering so that way we can have 2 Hyper-V hosts running, guest sessions running on it. If one Hyper-V host fails, all of those guest sessions can fail over through a single copy cluster to another node. But one of the things that we're also looking at is rather than doing clustering, which you kind of look at VMware and vMotion, of basically moving a session over, is that we're looking at what's built into the applications. You look at what's built into Exchange 2007, SharePoint 2007, SQL, is that we don't really need to go through and replicate these images. Is that with Exchange 2007 as an example, cluster continuous replication. I can set up 2 nodes on the system. Right out of the box from Microsoft, I can have one Exchange server fail over to another Exchange server in the cluster continuous replication model. So that way, I can leverage the capabilities of virtualization and get the failover. Same thing with SQL. SQL mirroring provides me with 2 copies of SQL, 2 copies of the databases, and if at any point there's a failure, I have another one available. So I don't have to get third-party tools and set up the special vMotion, NetApp snapshots, things of that type. I'm able to do this thing right out of the box with what Microsoft provides in Exchange and in SQL and in SharePoint, and then leverage Hyper-V failover clustering if I need to. So that's some pretty cool stuff in there.
And using Hyper-V and VMM, you can easily provision these machines for DR situations. If I need to bring up a server, I can do it much more. It adds more of a dynamic nature to IT and much more agility to the business.
Okay, so you bring up an interesting point. Virtual machines, they think they're real machines, right? They think they're physical machines, so why not just leverage the same disaster recovery that's built into those applications?
Yeah, it gives a whole different shift to how you manage DR and a lot more options that weren't available before.
Okay, great. You mentioned before that you had done some stuff originally using VMware. Can you talk a little bit about the architectural differences between Hyper-V and some of the other virtualization options that are out there?
I think you look at the core Hyper-V virtualization and the hypervisor. Technically you can go through all the different nuances, and some are better, some different. But at the end of the day, when you break out what we're looking at in the way of virtualization, whether I'm talking about VMware or I'm talking about Hyper-V, is that there's a change that Microsoft has put into place with Windows 2008 and Hyper-V that I can actually do a lot of this stuff around failover clustering or failover of applications that we're rethinking a lot of how we do things. Don't do it the VMware way, but really doing it a method of leveraging what's built into the apps. Step back and say, what can Exchange do out of the box? What can SQL do out of the box? So, functionally, I take an ESX server with 5 guest images. I can create a Hyper-V with 5 guest images as well. Functionally, they work the same as a host in a virtual, but I'm going to rethink my DR strategy. I'll rethink my failover. I'm going to look at more from a services model as opposed to a server failover model. And that's actually rethinking how I can best leverage the technology that's here.
And with it being built into the operating system and free, you can't beat the price. And I no longer have to deal with the licensing issues, things like that, that would maybe make me think twice about doing virtualization. I can just do it.
Great. Okay. Another thing, each chapter in the book you kind of finish with a best practices section. If you were to maybe bottom line and give us the top 2 or 3 best practices to always keep in mind when starting a deployment, what do you think they'd be?
I think the stuff that we find in best practices is really looking at the end result. What are you trying to accomplish? I mean, server consolidation is one kind of goal as to where am I trying to consolidate. Am I using Hyper-V for disaster recovery? Am I using Hyper-V just to kind of get rid of physical servers?